Love and light, guys. So we had a couple more questions related to the astral world and the fourth dimension. Well, this is actually about the lower dimensions. What is life like in the lower dimensions and densities? So looking at the seven-dimensional scheme, the third dimension is actually at the top of a pyramid or at the bottom of a pyramid, however you want to see it, meaning that the third dimension and the third density is the densest, is the most separative from source and unity out of all the dimensions. So meaning that both the fourth dimension and the second dimension are closer in experience to truth and source and our higher selves and souls than the third dimension and third density. So the second dimension is still in unity in a sense, like the fifth is. It's just not unity through the individual experience. So the second density, second dimension from the soul level is animal consciousness, plant and animal consciousness, okay? Lower animal consciousness, higher animal consciousness, and humans. For instance, chimps and whales and other higher mammals are all in third density, okay? It's not just because they're at the very beginning. Pets that have begun to individualize and have some individual understanding and awareness of themselves, or higher animals, are in the beginning of third density with the humans, and all the way up to the human spiritual man being at the apex of third density, and then finally crossing over into the fourth dimension. And then again, so plant and animal collectives in second density. This is the trees, this is the bees, this is lemurs, all the wild animals, again excluding the higher animals like chimps and pets, which have heavy association with humans and the human experience. So all of these, from the soul perspective, are not having an individual experience. This is the prime difference. They are still in unity. So these souls know that they are still part of all things, that they are just having a temporary experience. They're not they're on the other side of the veil. They haven't gone through the veil of forgetting like we have here. So they remember what they're doing. They know what experience they're having. And one soul may be inhabiting 1,000 trees, or a whole grove of trees, or a whole subspecies of something, So this is large collective experiences. And it's very hard to understand from this position, from the human position, because the soul that we were in the second density, in the second dimension, again, before we started to individualize any of our energy. So understand, we didn't take all the energy that we were as a soul that was playing, say, 1,000 trees or something, and playing things on other worlds too. We took part of that energy and individualized it into third density and into the third dimension. So it appears that energy for a time becomes much smaller than it was, even though from the physical side it seems like an evolution up from animal to human. From the soul side, it seems like this big collective of energy, localized down into a point, or separated part of itself off into a bubble, of individualization. And then it did that many times. Now, as that individual fragment travels through its third density experience, life after life after life, and its other soul fragment parts that the oversoul created, and as they finally spiritualize and travel into the fourth, and then finally start to rejoin at soul integration as they prepare to re-enter the fifth, then they come back together as the larger soul unit with all this individual experience integrated in. And then if we go down to first density, this is even less dense than second density, meaning this is pure source, pure unity. This is your oversoul, your Elohim self, really. The true eternal you, the true child of God that you are, the true eternal creator God that you are, embedded itself into the mineral kingdom, into physicality for the first time. So there's really no way to explain this experience from here except to say that this is unity consciousness. Then we had another question from someone else saying, it's very confusing if sixth density beings are on a fifth dimensional planet, since we're on a third dimensional planet, are we second density beings? And I'm not sure exactly where this is. I think this is coming from things I've said in the past, perhaps, where I've said that fifth, sixth, or even seventh density beings may be in the sixth dimension, or in the fourth dimension you may find fifth density beings. So I was just saying that there is a leeway of, there's a range of being able to present and traverse through dimensionality and density for any particular being. And especially as you go up, those in higher densities and dimensions have the ability to move down. So if they want to, they can present lower. So in places where they are doing service work, you may find, higher density civilizations or beings interacting in lower dimensional strata, on occasion. And in some certain situations, it's pretty common, actually. But no, we are third dimensional beings. Actually, many of us are fourth density or crossing into fourth density. Technically, the whole planet's in fourth density now, but we are not, most humans are not feeling that, living that, expressing that yet. They're just not fully aware of it yet. Although it is actually, technically the case. We have already moved up high enough, and we're just in the very beginning of fourth density. The ascending collective is a little higher up, and we have some that are already in fifth density. Because we've had several waves of ascensions now. We're on maybe the fifth, sixth wave of mass ascensions, and the first one that I noticed was in the 90s, like 95, 96, and then 2000s there was another big one, 2006, 2012, huge one, and then 2015, 17, 21, so we've had several awakenings, several mass awakenings, and some have already ascended, completely into the fifth, some of those who are really ahead. The very first, way showers have already crossed into their crystal light bodies or taken their Maya Varupa. And we had another question: what is life like on the lower density evil Earth? And I guess we're talking about the eighth sphere here again. And well, you know what it's like. It's like a horror movie. Honestly, all these horror movies we make, much of this is pulled from our understanding of the eighth sphere, our experience of the eighth sphere, because most of us, or all of us, I'm not precisely sure, but if not all of us, then most of us have been there, and many of us several times. I've been there both as an inmate, if you want to call it that, and as a savior. I've gone in to try to help people and bring them out. But yeah, so it is just like you would imagine it, a world of crime and darkness. For someone who was just stuck there without realizing what had happened, if they just walked into the eighth sphere, they would see, a very similar world, except everything would be more dreary. Everybody would be a little meaner, and eventually, once you stayed there long enough, you would start to notice there are other things there that were definitely not, present in the third dimension. Other kinds of beings, other kinds of entities, and all kinds of things that go bump in the night. So it's not a pleasant place to be, for sure. It's a place built of fear and anger. So all those fears that we give energy to, most, it is us creating most of this darkness. At one level, it's all us, but I mean, from the human level, we're not creating it all, because darkness was prior to the human experience even. But we here are magnifying and creating the majority of it here, even if there are others helping us. So all those fears are magnified and created and amplified in the eighth sphere. Although it is starting to dissolve now. We are at the end of the eighth sphere, the ascension into the eventual fourth density, if you want to call it, or fifth dimensional Earth. Eventually we will be moving into the fifth dimensional Earth. In about 100 years, we will be completely transitioned. So we are going through an incredibly rapid transition through fourth into the fifth. We will have about a century as a fourth density world, as a fourth density civilization, before moving to humanity's true destiny as a fifth density civilization in about 100 years. But the raising up of this frequency, the awakening of the Christ collective, the return of the Christ, which I said, just like the Buddha said, the final Buddha will be the Sangha, meaning the collective. The final Christ, the return of the Christ, will be the awakening Christ collective of all of us, the return to Christ consciousness. Does that mean that there will not be a physical avatar also that's representing the Christ most out of all of us? I'm not sure if anything will express that way or not. Maybe. It's not necessary though, because so many of us here are actually beginning to embody the Christ consciousness and Christ energy. And as this happens, that is dissolving the eighth sphere. And as because remember, the eighth sphere is in the astral. So as the Earth, the third density Earth starts to raise up, because of all, which the collective consciousness, as humanity's collective consciousness is raising up, we're pushing into those astral worlds. So, and then many of us are pushing up into the upper astral. So that means our energy is beginning to, dissolve all these dark corners within the astral, starting to break up these astral realms that we have not been aware of or be able to feel or be able to see for so long. So that allowed them to be able to manipulate us and prey upon us and all these things. But suddenly people are starting to be aware of them. Some people are starting to see them. People are starting to catch on, even if they don't consciously know, what is happening, what is causing this. They're starting to suddenly realize something is happening to change the way they react all over the world. So it's happening quickly. And we had another question: what does a fourth density being look like? What does an astral being look like? Well, many of them can change their form, change their shape, change the way they look. Even if they can't change their shape, it's likely they will be able to change their appearance for a human that's observing them. Whether that's an astral projection or in the dream state, or even if it's in physicality, likely they're going to be able to appear however they want. Now, if you have, a greater astral vision or clairvoyant vision, you may be able to see them how they truly are. But once you get up into the mid-fifth, physical appearance is a complete choice. So you can change your appearance at will across the board. Even in the fourth, there are those who can do it, who specialize in those things and have those talents. And pretty much everyone in the fourth has some ability to change their appearance. Things are much more fluid. The easiest way to really understand the dimensions and densities in a real big kind of overview way is understand that the third density, again, the third dimension, is the densest top of a pyramid of density, okay? And so it's that's the furthest from source, from our experience anyways. That is where we feel most separated, where we forget our connection to all things. That is where the most darkness and suffering exist. So we could call that, just like water can be seen as ice or liquid water or gaseous steam, but it's all water. So in that same way, we can see the third density or the third dimension as ice. The second density, the second dimension, the fourth density, the fourth dimension, the fifth density, the fifth dimension, those three, second, fourth, and fifth, those are all liquid. So meaning physicality is fluid. Physicality exists, but it is fluid. In the seventh dimension, the sixth dimension, and the first dimension, we are gas. This is physicality doesn't even exist, or if we do, it's just a brief thing we put on and take off. In the same way, you may see clouds take the shape of something for a moment before they move on to something else, So in the same way, an angel can make a face appear, but it is really gas. It is just intelligence. So that's a good overview way to kind of get a grasp of the dimensions. And the last question is, have I ever been to a parallel evil Earth? And first of all, we've all been to countless parallel Earths and other timelines. We're moving in and out of timelines quite often. So yes, for sure. Yeah, yeah, I have been. Although, it's a different experience when it starts to happen and you're really aware of these things, and and so not only have I found myself in other negative timelines, but through meditation, through prayer, through the connection to the higher self, I've been able to alter that. I've been able to go up and even see the timelines splayed out in front of me and shuffle through them until I found the right one. But I had to be, this wasn't like an easy thing. I had to get there through desperation and, realizing that I was in a real bad place, that I was really out of alignment, and this energy, this emotionality was enough to propel me up to a high enough position to where I could change the timeline, change the time stream, which I'm sure was the whole point of the experience in the first place. So I hope any of this made sense. Love and light to all of you.